Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a massive wave of legislative, security, and economic updates to see exactly how the U.S. is aggressively repositioning itself, both globally and right here at home. From the halls of Capitol Hill to the borders, and from global conflict zones right down to the smartphone in your pocket, the landscape is shifting incredibly fast. So, let's get into it.
Now, I want you to think about this core question for a second, because right now we're seeing the U.S. tighten its grip internationally while simultaneously launching these severe, sweeping crackdowns domestically. Honestly, it's incredibly rare to see this volume of policy overall happening all at once. We are literally watching a nation rebuild its foreign posture and its internal rulebook at the exact same time.
To make sense of the 35-plus major headlines we're tracking, here's our game plan. 1. Global diplomacy and security. 2. Strict immigration and internal shifts. 3. Corporate accountability and tech rivalry. And 4. Public safety and scientific milestones. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1. Global diplomacy and security. Navigating multi-front tensions.
So right out of the gate, the U.S. is executing this massive, multi-front diplomatic balancing act. On one hand, they're actively engaging leaders to push for a Ukraine ceasefire, noting some actual positive momentum in Iran talks, and mediating in Gaza. But at the exact same time, they are actively reviewing new nuclear defense strategies. They're arming Taiwan with coastal defense weapons, and they've got the NSA mapping out security tours in the Indo-Pacific. It's a really calculated strategy, pushing for peace on one side while heavily arming allies on the other.
And there is some serious legislative muscle backing that diplomacy up. The Senate just passed a strict new Russia sanctions bill, and it wasn't even close, an overwhelming 86-11 bipartisan vote. But here is the kicker. The U.S. isn't just targeting Russia directly anymore. They are aggressively threatening secondary buyers, like India and China, with tariffs of up to 100% if they keep buying Russian energy. I mean, that is a massive flex of economic power to try and force global alignment. And that geopolitical pressure, it absolutely extends to longtime allies too. The U.S. is now demanding that NATO member countries increase their defense spending to a minimum of 3% of their GDP. It's a pretty blunt signal that the U.S. expects its international partners to shoulder a much heavier financial burden for global security moving forward.
Moving right along to Section 2, strict immigration and internal shifts, rebuilding the domestic landscape.
So while all that is happening abroad, the government is rigorously cleaning house and rewriting the internal rulebook. The Senate just confirmed Todd Blanche as the new Attorney General. Meanwhile, domestic spending is facing intense scrutiny. For instance, a $400 million White House ballroom project was just suddenly halted by a court. But the really massive regulatory shifts are happening at the borders. Automatic citizenship rules for children of foreign nationals tightened. Mandatory social media vetting is now the standard for immigrant visas and foreign journalists. Add in AI border drones and the Supreme Court reviewing state gun laws, and the picture of tightening internal control is just undeniable. To give you an idea of how aggressively these new rules are actually being enforced on the ground, think about this number: 28,000. That is the number of commercial licenses that have just been revoked for truck drivers who cannot speak English. This isn't just a minor policy tweak on paper. It's a massive enforcement action that directly impacts national supply chains, logistics, and ultimately the cost of the goods on your local store shelves.
All right, let's shift to Section 3, corporate accountability and tech rivalry, regulating giants and shifting supply chains. This dual-pronged approach we've been talking about is sparking a very direct action and reaction cycle in the global tech war. Check this out. After China banned certain American chips, the U.S. immediately retaliated by blacklisting several Chinese AI companies. And the real-world consequence of this tit-for-tat? Megacorporations like Apple are scrambling. They are rapidly accelerating their plans to shift massive chunks of their assembly lines completely out of China, moving them into the U.S. and India just to avoid getting caught in the crossfire.
And domestically, the tech giants are absolutely not escaping scrutiny either. A U.S. court recently slapped Meta with heavy fines for policies harming youth mental health, which actually sparked Congress to introduce a bipartisan privacy bill targeting children's data. On top of that, as the AI race heats up, heavyweights like OpenAI and Google are suddenly facing much stricter legal frameworks for their next-generation models. Combine all of this with tighter rules on foreign investment in sensitive tech and strict new import standards for lithium-ion batteries, well, it's pretty clear the Wild West era for big tech is rapidly coming to a close. Economically speaking, we're seeing a bit of a mixed bag right now. The Federal Reserve is holding interest rates steady as inflation finally shows some real signs of cooling down. However, the labor market is definitely feeling the squeeze. July jobs and workforce participation actually saw it decline. But hey, it's not all slowdowns. Global energy trade is shifting favorably, driven by a booming India-US LPG import partnership. And for all the crypto followers out there, Congress is finally stepping in with a brand new regulatory framework specifically geared towards stablecoins.
Still on the topic of corporate accountability, here is a number that will definitely catch your eye if you're a frequent flyer. 471. A massive federal investigation was just launched, resulting in the FAA ordering strict inspections on 471 Boeing 737 MAX jets after some dangerous structural cracks were discovered. It's just another glaring example of federal regulators stepping in and demanding immediate corporate accountability.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, Public Safety and Scientific Milestones, Weather, Hazards, and Innovations.
Right now, the nation is battling extreme weather events on literally 3 entirely separate fronts. Down in the Gulf, massive storms have triggered severe coastal alerts across Texas and Louisiana. Out west, extreme heat is fueling these fast-spreading wildfires, consuming hundreds of acres in California. And down in the southeast, coastal Florida cities are grappling with major flooding and widespread power outages from unprecedented rainfall. It is a total logistical nightmare that's severely stressing emergency response systems across the country.
And unfortunately, these extreme weather events are compounding an already incredibly tense public safety environment. Recent headlines have been heavy, dominated by a tragic mass shooting at a shopping mall in Idaho, a really devastating helicopter crash involving firefighters in Utah, and the heartbreaking recovery of an Indian-origin PhD student who went missing on a track. Add to that a military training accident in Georgia and massive labor union protests erupting right outside Capitol Hill over new rules, and you can really sense the friction currently vibrating throughout the country. But, despite all these heavy challenges, American science and innovation are just continuing to break boundaries at a staggering pace. Next month, NASA officially kicks off the next phase of astronaut training for the Artemis moon mission, bringing us one massive step closer to a lunar return. Just this week, SpaceX successfully deployed 23 more Starlink satellites into orbit. And perhaps most importantly for everyday folks, the FDA literally just granted fast-track approval for a groundbreaking targeted cancer therapy drug.
Just to round out the cultural landscape, everyday consumers and entertainment fans are definitely feeling the ripple effects of all these macro changes. Over in sports, the U.S. is gearing up for the massive 2026 FIFA World Cup, having just completed major venue security checks. In entertainment, the Oscars are already updating their 2027 rules to deal with the absolute explosion of AI-generated content, even as Hollywood streaming giants face a harsh wave of layoffs. And for the everyday consumer, inflation and supply chain shifts mean airlines are hiking domestic fares, and even giants like Amazon are pulling back, officially changing their famously generous free return policies.
So from 100% tariffs and border drones to sweeping AI regulations and multi-front diplomatic pushes, I want to leave you with this final thought. Are all these strict internal reforms and aggressive foreign maneuvers the signs of a nation retreating into protectionism, or is this simply what it looks like when a superpower systematically gears up for the next great global competition? It's a fascinating question and one that is absolutely going to shape the next decade. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the headlines.